This single comment has caused a lot of arguments. No, seriously, a lot of arguments. And this is on my Zelda meme, less than 20 seconds long. This is true internet spirit. Before we get into the argument, let me clarify a few things. First, if you harass anyone in this video simply because of their opinion in this argument, then you're just as bad as Sniper Wolf, and Penguin Zoe will decline you when you try to go into heaven. Speaking of Penguin Zoe, this video is inspired by his Paper Mario video. Anyways, this thread died 4 months ago, so leave them in peace. I've also stopped allowing new comments on the video, because I know that this video will probably explode a few years later, like most memes of this nature, and that the argument will go on fire again. So, let's begin. First, we need some context if we're to understand this argument. That's why I'm going to show you the original Zelda meme that inspired it. Here's the video. Yeah, shocking that this video caused so many arguments. However, the original comment was a pretty simple one, and goes well with the context of the video. Here's what the original commenter, Zeramu, or at least that's how I think you pronounce it, states. If they have to put down male characters to compensate and try to make a female character look better, it's not a strong female lead, it's just misandry. I agreed and said, yup. Another person by the username TheFantasyLife2267 decided to join in on the conversation and talked about how it could potentially work. They stated it can work if the idea is to point out how some works of literature only have the female characters support the male characters and how ridiculous that gets. Of course, ideally, both would support each other, that way no character gets left behind. Another clear and simple statement, they talk about how the idea could be used to explore how ridiculous gender roles can be in a lot of media, and how the idea could be used to make a point. It was good sportsmanship and it adds something new to conversation. So far, this is just a conversation, not an argument. Zeramu continues to keep it a conversation and peacefully disagrees. Not really the same thing, not even close. Literature making the female character support the male character is not a problem. That's a good thing. That is not getting left behind, and it certainly is not ridiculous. That is not putting down the female character. Making a character purposely incompetitive, arrogant, and clumsy, while making the other the opposite is what putting down a character looks like. That too is a completely valid argument. There's nothing wrong with female characters supporting the male character. If the conversation continued to be peaceful, I wouldn't have made this video. I would have simply enjoyed the conversation, hearted all the replies, and just be happy that the people who watched my videos are so intelligent and polite. Like a Tom Scott comment section or Mr. Beat comment section. No, not Mr. Beast or Mr. Feast. Mr. Beat, you know, the original one who uploaded their first video in 2011, whose real name is actually Beat. No, my comment sections weren't like theirs, and will never be like theirs. It'll be like Jack's films. I think. I don't know. Things can change dramatically. Enter Sunji9862. Yes, I'm going to continue mispronouncing usernames in this video. Get used to it. Anyway, she seems to be offended by this conversation. Yes, I know I shouldn't be assuming people's gender, but I doubt a male will be so angry at other males and be generalizing them. Anyways, here's what she says. When they do that to female characters, y'all have no issue with it, men playing victims over video games. Those are some strong words. And where did we get video games from? We're talking about literature here. User Zebgor also gets offended too. Female characters are often seen as weak and useless to make the male character heroes, yet you see no problem with that. But reverse a gender, all of a sudden it's misandry. Men are so used to being oppressors and privileged that they can only play victims of online games. So male characters can never be incomplete and weak. Are men suppose always been seen as the best? So egotistical. I'm trying so hard not to correct that sentence. Look, there are grammatical errors all over the reply section of this comment, but that last sentence gets me so hard. Are men suppose always been? There's so many ways to word this, yet she chooses this. Yet again, I shouldn't be assuming people's gender, but the way she takes this personally clearly shows how much she dislikes men. And yet again, where did we get video games from? This video is about literature, and the argument is about literature. Yet you talk about video games. Look, I get if you talk about movies and shows, because the meme is from a cartoon, and shows and movies do have this sort of issue, but video games? Okay, I guess you can argue that this show is an adaptation of a video game, so video games are relevant. But online games? That's stretching it farther than the stories of most Indian serials. I don't think there's a single person who thinks of Super Smash Bros. When they're watching the Zelda show. Maybe during that one scene where Link is humming Mario music, because when Mario and Link are together, they are usually fighting, and when they're fighting, it's from Super Smash Bros. Oh, look! What a big connection! Online gaming is so relevant to this meme! Ah! By the way, these two don't only leave angry replies here, they also leave angry replies in other comments. They remind me of how PewDiePie stands react when someone remotely gives criticism on PewDiePie's content, and that's not a good thing to be compared to. Unless you're a troll, then that's a compliment for you. You know what I find interesting? These two always reply in the same comments, and consecutively on top of that. Throughout this entire argument, Zerumu replies pretty quickly, but here, another person adds to the fire before he replies. It's almost as if they're the same person, and they're just quickly changing accounts to leave more comments. I won't be surprised if they are, because the way they're taking this personally could suggest them using an alt account to continue adding to the fire. Anyway, Zerumu replies to them. First, he addresses Zepguar. No, I'm not assuming genders again. Later on in the argument, someone tells him that he isn't a woman and doesn't know what women are interested in, and he replies saying, yeah, before he explains how people have different interests anyways. I don't assume people's gender, unless I have evidence suggesting that they are this gender. I also don't assume people's virginity. Zerumu replies to Zepguar saying, this is such a disingenuous comment. If this wasn't a trend, we wouldn't be talking about it now, would we? He continues the argument by saying, wrong though. Female characters are almost never seen as useless. Most importantly, they're never put down to make anyone look better. There is rarely, if ever, the useless just for the right idiot female character sidekick trope to make the main male character look smart. This is exclusively a common trope in which the male is the useless one and just there for comedic relief and nothing else, while the mannish ugly female character who's angry all the time acts tough to emphasize how strong she is. And when it's not that extreme and needs a bit more subtly, it's the case that the female character has to put down the male character to compensate for the fact that she's 100% weaker than all protagonists physically in real life. Way Star Wars movies, She-Hulk, Captain Marvel, most late Marvel movies have this trope at one point or another, actually. Now, I do think he went a little too far by calling some characters ugly, and I feel like he was a bit angry while typing it. To be fair, if someone were to reply to me so angrily and accuse me of discrimination and arrogance, then I would probably react even worse than him, so props to him for staying calm for the most part. I mean, nowadays I've learned how to answer these angry trolls. My strategy is just to go like, bruh. I'm not going to explain why this strategy will work because that'll be a bruh moment itself. Anyways, this is where the argument starts to become a truly big argument. Enter MeAtMeJB9G7, whose username is not only really hard for me to pronounce, but is also as determined as Zerumu when it comes to arguments. Here's what they say. See, I'm not always assuming gender. I'm not always assuming gender. Not always. Oh, I can agree to disagree. It's so common seeing weak female characters to make the male character look strong. For example, one would be damsel in distress. And let's add anime to this example. Mainly, the female character will have the good character traits and is capable till she comes in contact with the male character. Now all of a sudden she's incompetent and lost all her mobility and her characteristic. Not to mention, damsel in distress is basically to make male characters who would be the knight in shining armor in this trope to make him look cool, while she just a hopeless mess without him. It's so common, yet when it's reversed, it's a problem. I don't like either, to be honest, but to deny as if that don't happen is absurd. Now when it's the other way around, it's feminist gender. Well, it's a taste of your own medicine. These are some great points, and I believe Sunji9862 and Zepguar could learn from this. This is how you debate. It's clear, it's thorough, and while it may be a mess in terms of grammar, it's very polite. Look at that first sentence. I can agree to disagree. This is how you argue. I'm also talking to you, you PewDiePie stans. Anyways, Zerumu replies, it's so common seeing weak female character to make the male character look strong. This is already a misconception. In a male power fantasy role, the male is strong with or without someone important to protect, the female. But adding a female makes it more relatable to the viewers, because women like a man that can protect them, and men want to be protectors. Typically, the female would be the damsel in distress, because in real life, women are physically weaker than men, and would in reality be far away from most conflict depending on situation. This is not demeaning in any way, it's just reality. Women want a knight in shining armor, and women do not relate to male power fantasy. This is why damsel in distress formula just works. No woman sees herself as being lesser, or any man sees himself as more due to it. Also, what you describe is not the meaning of characters like this Link situation, not remotely comparable to a character acting like a fool for the other one to seem smart. You'll see a lot of the male power fantasy argument, by the way. Now, if you thought the comments we've seen so far are long, wait until later. It gets insane. More insane than these nuts. I'm not sorry, I really needed that. Anyways, let's introduce the next person in this argument. Meet Salient.6577, whose arguments with Zeramu will result in comments that challenge YouTube's comment character limit, and are so long that most Redditors will be scared to take on that challenge. Here's what she says. No, I'm not assuming gender. You can tell they're female using basic context clues. Don't cancel me. Yet. Let me first be big enough, so that way Sunny V2 can make a documentary on me and I'll get more views. Anyways, she states, women do not relate to the male power fantasy since when? Everybody wants to be a hero, to be loved and admired for being exceptional among the common folk, to rise above the masses and be remembered. That's every single person's fantasy. That's the very reason there are more and more female superhero stories these days, because women want to be strong protectors too. And the myth of the warrior maiden has been a trope in religion and literature since the ancient times. Amazons, Valkyries, Deborah in the Bible, Joan d'Arc, Artemisua, Queen of Harlequinesses, Togozin, Mulan. Even if, for most part, men and women alike, being that special is just a fantasy that will never come true. It's something that appeals to both genders. Most women don't really mind being the damsels in distress in some stories either, and some find it romantic, it's true. What aggravates them is when this trope oversaturates the media and there's no story where they are the fierce warrior who gets to save the day too. Men really dislike being a damsel in distress, though, as some comments around here confirm. The only way they are okay with a woman saving a male character is by healing him, which is also a trope that women are getting tired of. I think this is some of my favorite comments in this entire argument. I really like the structure of the argument too. Even the Redditors on r/amida_asshole would be proud of this. Yeah, I know the joke doesn't really make much sense. It's fine. Anyways, this argument starts off by questioning the other person's argument, and then going on to talk about a universal truth. They then connect that universal truth to the argument, and show that the strong woman trope is in high demand, and that people really like it. They then talk about generally speaking, women don't mind tropes like the damsel in distress, but what they don't like is oversaturation. Don't like oversaturation. You know, that reminds me of a certain dude. He made over 50 memes on the same show, and stopped only because he ran out of ideas. That's no excuse for not making 100. Now we're getting into the big arguments. You see, in this comment, Zeramu singled out all of the points in Salient.6577's argument, and then gives an individual response to it. This is what Zeramu has to say. Since when? Since ever, when we're talking specifically about male power fantasy, not female heroes. There are exceptions to almost every rule, of course, but generally that's not something that attracts women. That's why such movies centered around that tend to flop unless they have other hooks. That is why marketing tends to target specific audiences. Women relate to female heroes, not female heroes living male power fantasies. Everybody wants to be a hero, yeah, and that manifests differently to different people. Not every hero is I'm the strongest badass sort of thing. Women don't usually like to project in that word of thing. That's more of a man thing. The reason why we men don't live as long is because every single man thinks that in an emergency, they would become the Terminator in their fantasies. Women, not so much, but it does not make them not have an ideal female hero archetype. One common woman power fantasy that a lot of women relate to, so much in fact that the most popular erotica books center around it is the taming the monster within the powerful male and controlling it. It's funny how much of it is vampires and werewolves. I don't judge it though. Lol. That's the very reason there are more and more female superhero stories these days. There's not been an increase in female heroes at all. There's only been an increase in male power fantasies, which tend to flop, as I said, or not be as popular. Feminine Lara Croft is significantly more iconic than Captain Marvel, for example. Female heroes is nothing new. Alien franchise Lara Croft, Sailor Moon, X-Files, and a whole bunch of 90s series in which female is usually the same one, since someone has to be, but without putting down male, usually unlike, say, She-Hulk. If you mean superhero movies, like films specifically, it's because there has been an increase in superhero movies in general. but these female heroes existed well before the movies were made. A lot of them not even close to being the male power fantasy media types and just cool superheroes that they are. The male power fantasy is something silly, but very specific, like Rambo. How many women do you think would like female Rambo in comparison to men that like Rambo? Men totally think they would run around Vietnam with a machine gun and not get hit once. Because women want to be strong protectors too. Yeah, of course, every sane woman does. Different energies though. A male protector rings very different than a woman protector. A woman holds her children and stands by her man. A man holds his wife and children. The reality is that men are stronger and generally more aggressive, physically. Women generally know their limitations, and what makes a strong woman is not a woman living in a male power fantasy or the baddest bitch type. It's a woman that knows her limitations and works around it to better herself. That's a female virtue. Incidentally, a man that knows his limitations and works to better himself is also a masculine virtue. Feminine and masculine virtues are basically the same, but project as different energies. This is what people relate to, and it's one of the reasons why, despite there always having been female superheroes, a lot of girls related to people like Gwen too, who despite not being a superhero has supported and even saved Spider-Man multiple times. Men really dislike being damsels in distress, though, as some comments around here confirm. Yeah, that is part male human nature and part power fantasy. If a man fails to save his woman or needs saving, they will feel like they failed. If a woman fails to do so, it couldn't be helped because naturally the male villains are stronger. The reality is that they are saving each other because she loves them and vice versa, but just more or less why they feel that way. When this trope oversaturates the media, that's fair, it happens a lot, but many tropes have done that. It's like music. So much of it is about love, which is a good thing, but holy fudge. When something works, it's marketed to their target audience for profit. Not a bad thing necessarily, but it doesn't make everyone happy, just most. Wow, that took me 10 minutes to type into the transcript. This entire quote is a page long. That was a little over 4,000 characters. The YouTube comment character limit is 10,000. Yeah, maybe they weren't that close to surpassing it. But 4,000 characters is still a lot, and a 4,000 character quote is not good for a YouTube video. 40,000 is, but it's fine. I'll take what I have. Anyway, Celian.6577 replies and says, "It's funny how you've singled out every single part of my comment to respond to it, except the one that completely destroys your theory, which is the fact that the myth of maiden warrior who is as strong as men has been existed for centuries through female characters such as Amazons, the Valkyries, Deborah, Joan d'Arc, Artemisia, Tomagozin, Mulan, and many more. And it is a popular trope that works amazingly well too because some men are attracted to strong women. And this kind of portrayal strokes women's ego. Women definitely do not and should not cater to female heroes that know her limitations and work around it, or even have those limitations in the first place. The very principle of a superhero is that he or she is a superhuman. Men look up to fictional male characters that have physical abilities that far exceed what a human being is able to do, and that they realistically could never achieve. No man on Earth can shoot laser beams from his eyes, phase through walls, or punch a crater into the ground. Why are men allowed to have male heroes who are nothing like what a human male is? Meanwhile, women should only look up to female heroes who are realistic. Women would definitely look up to a female Rambo if there was any. What do you think goes through a woman's head when she sees Black Widow fold a whole squad of highly trained male Hydra assassins in half? Why doesn't Black Widow know her limitations and try to tame the monsters within these powerful men instead of knocking one out? That's lame, I don't like it. No, she thinks, you go girl, teach those assholes a lesson, and wishes she was strong enough to do the same to the men who have wronged her. She knows that in real life, few women are as brave as Black Widow, and fewer are as strong. But I'm pretty sure most men also know that no man alive is as brave and strong as Captain America is. It doesn't matter, it's fiction that people watch in order to escape reality. It's not meant to be a faithful representation of what men and women are capable of. Even a typical female protagonist tames the male's monster stories, the protagonist usually kicks ass, especially when supernatural is involved. In the Twilight books and movies, Bella becomes one of the strongest vampires after she turned into one, and her daughter is meant to become even stronger, because there's some rule about children who are born vampires being insanely powerful or whatever, to the point that Voltura, the big baddie, is older and stronger than the rest, that all vampires are afraid of, are scared of the kid. And you mentioned women liking Gwen, whose popularity skyrocketed due to Spider-Gwen actually. Every blonde girl and their mother cosplays as Spider-Gwen, not plain old Gwen Stacy. Truth is that you're not a woman, and thus you actually have no idea what women fantasize about. In times of war, when men left to go to the battlefield, do you really think no woman ever thought, If only I could be strong enough to go with my husband slash brother slash father and keep him safe. That when a noble woman mistreated his daughters because he didn't manage to father a male heir, his girls didn't think, if only I could be as strong as a boy so that my father wouldn't need a male heir and would be proud of me. That when women see men vastly dominate in sports, they don't think, it would be nice if someday an extraordinary woman would outperform everybody and come out on top for once, and dream about being this extraordinary woman. They know it's unrealistic, but fiction can make it happen. I get that men feel like they're failing when a woman saves them, but not all superhero movies should be exclusively be written for men. Statistics have shown that the genre has an almost evenly split male slash female audience, and many women have thought, I would like to be the one who will jump into action, come to man's rescue, and fight alongside him as an equally or even more admirable warrior for once. You guys have plenty of movies written to satisfy your power fantasies. Can you let women use fiction to have their moment of glory too? Please? No, this is the internet. Nobody can enjoy a moment in peace. The only way for this to happen is if the morbphobes learn to appreciate Morbius for the masterpiece it is. Or if they just die. It's massacring time! I forgot to heart the comment for the first time, but it's been 4 months now, so I'm not gonna bother them and give them an email about how I've hearted their 4-month reply. Anyways, this is what Zeramo replies. Except the one that completely destroys your theory, because it doesn't. What do legends created by men have to do with what women usually want to see on movies and media? And in the case of historical figures, so nobody thinks Mulan or Joan of the Arc were as physically strong as the men they were surrounded by. They probably weren't, and that is far from the point of why they were strong. Men are attracted to strong women. I mean, there's taste, but generally speaking, men don't like buff women. And generally speaking, a strong woman doesn't have to be buff, nor does she have to be insufferable in movies that try to portray a badass, which is unfortunately one of the things that happen when these movies miss the mark. This kind of portrayal strokes women's ego. Maybe some women, but generally unrelatable to women. The aspects of strength that usually admired by them don't even have anything to do with physical strength either, but willpower, resourcefulness, and intelligence. Hence why most historically admired female heroes emphasize these qualities over strength. Again, for example, basically every adversary Lara Croft ever faced was stronger than she was, but she's an armed ninja and even fell in love. The very principle of a superhero is that he or she is superhuman. Superman has his kryptonite and emotional problems despite being a powerful man. A hero without those is a Mary Sue, which is one of the usual criticisms to such female characters like Rey from Star Wars, She-Hulk, and Captain Marvel. No man on Earth can shoot laser beams from his eyes. Ha! Bold of you to assume I cannot. Meanwhile, women should only look up to female heroes who are realistic. Never said that. I said those are the qualities that women relate to more and admire the most. Literally every female hero that is loved and have mentioned or idolized by women has some power or cool thing going for them. Why doesn't Black Widow know her limitations and try to tame the monsters within these powerful men instead of knocking them out? Well, there's a difference between the woman power fantasy and enjoying the action and special effects. Maybe beating up 50 men is your power fantasy, but that would be an exception to the general. Women are less aggressive physically and men are more aggressive physically. These things manifest in what caters to their interests and from a market point of number view that the numbers don't like. More men will watch the edgy ninja and more women will watch the romance flick. Differences manifest more on the extremes of society that way. Every blonde girl and their mother's cosplay as Spider-Gwen, not plain old Gwen Stacy. It's the new thing. Of course nobody's gonna cosplay as usual Gwen. What are you gonna do? Wear a blouse? Plus, her new design is amazing. Truth is that you're not a woman, and thus you actually have no idea what women fantasize about. Yeah, it depends on what sells. In erotica, for example, it's very, very specific. In movies, we know who is popular and who is not. Generally speaking anyways, people can still have different interests. If only I could be strong enough to go with my husband slash brother slash father and keep him safe. That is very different than a power fantasy. Again, no sane woman thinks it's okay for her man to be in danger and not do anything about it. Generally speaking, men are more likely to be interested in a male Rambo than women are to be interested in female Rambo. If you are into female Rambo, good, but we are speaking generally. I get that men feel like they're failing when a woman saves them. They feel like they are failing when they're unable to protect and need to be saved, like asking your child to lend you money. That the genre has an almost evenly split male slash female audience. I mean, a lot of men go watch romance movies because their woman takes them. They too would pop in the audience, man. But I know what you're trying to say. Yes, of course, superhero movies have female fans too, but it's not refuted or nor involved anything discussed so far. Superhero movies have many reasons to love them. They are comedy, romance movies because their woman takes them. They too would pop an audience, but I know what you're trying to say. Yes, of course, superhero movies have female fans too, but that does not refute nor involve anything discussed so far. Superhero movies have many reasons to love them. They're comedy, romance, more comedy and action. The ones that usually flunk are the ones that actually try and capitalize on women in male power fantasies, so to speak. Can you let women use fiction to have their moment of glory too, please? What do you mean? No one is saying no. It's just that most women are generally not interested in that sort of trope, and so it doesn't sell as well. Then again, the movies have tried that and flunked. Beside the interest issue is also that characters are just terrible, insufferable Mary Sues. So that is another factor that could put off women. She-Hulk is very different to the way more successful Wonder Woman. That one was really good. You know what? If Disney took a moment to read through this entire argument and see the points on both sides, I think they could actually start to make good movies again and make a comeback in the box office. I mean, this argument has given me so much knowledge that I now have confidence in writing Woman. Hey, don't take that out of context. Actually do it so that way I can become a meme and gain views again. Anyways, this is what Celian.6577 has to say. These legends may have been created by men, but they are popular among female audiences because women enjoy seeing other women in positions of power or being warriors. They always have and always will. If I told you that women also love Romeo and Juliet, you wouldn't tell me, well, Romeo and Juliet was written by a man, so it's irrelevant now, would you? It's not about the gender of the person who originally wrote these myths. It's about the fact that they wouldn't be as popular as they are if both men and women weren't attracted to them. Mulan is not a historical figure, by the way, it's a legend. Joan d'Arc's historical validity is also debated. The girl has probably existed, but her story was romanticized and embellished through the years. The only historical figures I mentioned are Toma Gozan, the most famous female samurai, and Artemisia, queen of Harlequins, who was a real lady who helped Xerxes, king of Persia, against the Greek invasion, who gained the respect and admiration of Xerxes and Greek and Persian people for her bravery, because she used to lead her army into battle herself as their commander. They could have been forgotten through the ages, but their stories are famous because both men and women have always enjoyed stories about strong queens and warriors, because these women are extraordinary. People are fascinated by women who have managed to rise in positions of power despite their gender, or become rulers, warriors, pirates, scientists, and so on. And they always will be, because it does make for good stories. Most male superheroes are about willpower, resourcefulness, and intelligence, about strength as well. And most male superheroes are weaker than the villains they fight. Otherwise, there would be no challenge. I fail to see how women differ on that specific point. Iron Man and Batman aren't popular because they're stronger than everyone else. They're popular because they are crafty, determined, and brave mere mortals using technology to fight against gods that are far more powerful than them. It's the myth of David and Goliath. The more the villain's strength outrivals the hero, the most courageous the hero will seem for confronting the villain. Being strong enough to be able to beat up 50 men at once is a power fantasy of pretty much every single woman in the world. Don't lie. Laughing my ass off. You must not know many of them. Even the most stereotypically feminine woman I know who only watches romance flicks and telenovelas would tell me, yeah, that sounds nice. Show these men what we're capable of. Girl power! She usually jams to the song Who Runs the World? Girls by Beyonce, after all. Truth is, most ninja movies are about male ninjas and are written by men to cater to men. But a female director like Greta Gerwig were to make a good movie about the life of Toma Gozan, the female samurai I talked about earlier, I can assure you that plenty of women would go to see it. Even if there's no romance in it. There's no romance in Barbie either, and women loved it. The superhero movie that flunked, Captain Marvel, made 1.181 billion USD in the box office and had 55% of men and 45% of women coming in to watch it on opening weekend. But okay, call it a flunk if that doesn't appeal to women, if you will. Don't flunk because they are portraying female characters fulfilling the male power fantasy whatsoever, because they are simply badly written. There are plenty of terribly written movies that still have a male protagonist fulfilling the male power fantasy, yet don't manage to draw any man to the theater to go watch them because they're just terribly bad movies, regardless of the fact that they appeal to the male power fantasy. You seem to have sort of changed your stance throughout your comment, since you're admitting that Wonder Woman is a good example of a female character fulfilling a male power fantasy that still got a good, well-written, and well-directed movie and appealed to women, and that the problem with She-Hulk, Ray, or Captain Marvel is not that they follow the model of the male power fantasy, but the protagonist are Mary Sue's, which is an entirely different problem in itself. You know, these two people's arguments make more sense and are more intelligent than fucking presidential debates, which is saying something about how screwed up politics are. Not gonna lie, I think the most likeliest candidate to win is DeSantis, which is kind of C-tier candidate, but hey, at least he isn't Vivek Ramaswamy, the guy who wants to shut down the fucking IRS, believes fossil fuels are necessary for humans to flourish, believes the... Wait, this is the wrong video to rant about him. Sorry, let's continue with the argument. Oh wait, these two people aren't actually having an argument anymore. They're having a conversation. Look what Zeramu has to say. I think Mary Sue is a common problem with power fantasies. Probably the biggest one, honestly, since both men and women tend to dislike that. Also, when femininity is replaced by superpowers as it was mutually exclusive is another one. But again, yeah, that is a separate thing of what generally interests men and women in media. I'm not arguing that Marvel and Star Wars have fan bases of both men and women. These are things that are catered towards everyone with multiple elements. I'm just speaking the simple truth that generally there are things that interest women more than men and vice versa. Men generally don't subscribe to watch Hallmark or go watch romantic comedies as much as women. These are things that our wives drag us to. Likewise, we drag them to watch Rambo, or female Rambo even. Celian.6577 replies calmly too. And while the argument isn't really over, we've reached peace. At least that's what Zerimu probably thinks, means he still didn't make a reply to that comment, while he's still replying to whatever arguments Miadmi JB9G7 has to have with him. I mean, I guess I could continue with the argument, but I guess it never really was an argument, was it? I mean, Sunji9862 and Zebwar treated it like that, but in the end, this was just a conversation about gender roles and why they exist. I guess you can say that I clickbaited you, but in my defense, the thumbnail was 100% legit and 100% covered, so... Anyways, I think we could really learn about how us humans can and should communicate with each other. Using this conversation as an example, presidential debates are often really bad because it's just some rich people spewing crap at each other. Remember, pretty much every president we've ever gotten were rich, or else they wouldn't have been able to promote themselves as much as they could have. The truth is that on the internet, we take things too personally, and we never take things constructively. We'll never get anything done if we keep bickering without understanding each other and where their ideas are coming from. Damn, I really suck at these conclusions, don't I? Sorry guys, I'm no H-Bomber guy, even though I strive to be like him. Well, since I can't make a proper conclusion, there's only one other way to end this. It's Morbin time.